Hello, welcome to another weekly update. I hope you're keeping well. Certainly here in the UK, it's been a much nicer week kind of this week for weather. So it's been sunny, it's been warming up a little bit. It's been very cold at night, but just nice to get outside. Things are slowly starting to unlock. Kind of sit outside with friends and kind of enjoy a meal together outside and doing all that in the sun as well. It's just nice. So reasons to be positive. So hope all your feet keeping well, whatever it is you're doing. I know kind of the world's unlocking at different speeds, and some people are very much in the middle of a kind of a crisis still at the moment, and just sending kind of thoughts for those people, and just hope you get through it. And it's just horrible, but hopefully with the vaccines and everything, light is at the end of the tunnel. Anyway. That's not what I was going to talk about today. The stuff I was going to talk about today was new things that have happened in the Microsoft Teams developer platform space. And the first of those is a new thing that you can do in Graph to get at a meeting attendance report. So a meeting attendance report is, we've started seeing it show up in the Teams client as well after meetings. It's kind of a report about the meeting, so who was there and the times that they were there for. And you can now get all of that information through the Graph API as well as an API call you can make and get the JSON result back. So this particular call lives kind of where the other online meeting calls take place. And there's already a get call for getting a specific meeting, and that gives you back like the details of the meeting and stuff. There's a slash on the end of that, so you got a get, and then you put the online meetings, and then another slash, and then the ID of the meeting. Then there's another slash you can put on and put meeting attendance report, and all this is in the blog post. In fact, let me share my screen so you can see. Here you go. So online meeting, the ID, and then meeting attendance report. You'll get back all of the data. Now, what do I mean by all of the data? Well, you'll get back who the meeting organizer is and their attendance time, and then each individual attendee as well. Their role, was it as a presenter or just as an attendee, and their attendance time as well. No details about kind of whether or not they shared their screen or anything like that, I don't think. But for you've got their join and end times. Where people kind of join multiple times, you'll get a start and an end time for each of those joins, as well as the duration as well. So it's really meant to be, it's a report of who was in the meeting and when they were there and how long they were there for. So you might use this, for instance, if you're giving training and you want to know that the people in the meeting were there for at least like 80% of the call, because then they probably were there for most of the training. You can work all that stuff out using this attendance report. And so the meeting has to have finished before you can do this. If you try and go and get it, because you've got the ID pretty much from when the meeting gets created. But if you try and get it beforehand, there won't be anything in it until after the meeting is finished. What else? You can't use it for live events. There are some separate API calls actually for live events now. So if you want to get an attendees report for a live event, you can do that. There's just a different API endpoint. I linked to it down here somewhere. This page here gives you those. What else? You can do this with delegated permissions. You can also do it with application permissions as well. You have to use an application access policy. I've talked about those before, so follow that link if you're interested. I talk about it when you're creating Teams meetings, because you can also create Teams meetings in exactly the same way using an application access policy. So all of that is available for you to use today. It's in beta, not 1.0, so just be aware of that. But it should work today. You can go and find it. Links to the full documentation on the Microsoft Docs site as well. And you can come here and read this blog post for a bit more information as well. Okay, so that was the kind of that's the stuff I've written up this week. A couple of other things have also happened. We've been following the series, kind of 3-part blog series about building apps that has been taking place in the Microsoft Teams developer blog. We now have the 3rd part out, came out a few days ago, so I'll put a link to that in as well. The first 2 parts kind of talked through the things you could do and things to be aware of. This one is much more about kind of how you publish and make your application available to lots of different people. So it's about thinking about publishing in the app source. And it's very much a post about how to publish things to the app source, and gives you a whole list of questions to think about. and also links off to the guidance. There's a lot of guidance actually that Microsoft have given you for how to think about publishing an application and the things you need to do to be successful, the things that you cannot do, the things that are in the rules, but also things that you should do for kind of best success. And the author of this blog post goes through some of those. Again, let me share my screen so you can see. So we've got things to ask yourself about performance availability, things to ask yourself about security and compliance, a whole checklist that has come from probably this app certification document to go through. This reminds me, actually, I did a blog post. I'm going to link to this blog post as well. I did this in a few years ago, so 2018. Okay, May 2018. Nearly, to the day, to 18, 19, 4 years and 1 day or something, or just under 4 years to the day. No, 4 years and 1 day, almost to the day. Basic maths on a Friday. Yeah, so this is a blog post I did about publishing your Teams app to the App Store, how it all works, what you have to do, the things you have to think about. I don't go into quite so much prescriptive information here as this person does. This is more about the process you need to go through and what the feedback loop looks like and all this sort of stuff. So read both of those maybe in conjunction, and that will be useful if you're thinking about publishing your application to the App Store. I recommend it. I think it's a good thing to do. I think the App Store is a really good resource for Microsoft Teams developers. I think more people should be publishing to the App Store. There's no reason not to. And actually, this is a kind of a good time to do it as well, because it's not like the Apple App Store, right, where there's like a bazillion different apps. There's not loads and loads and loads of Teams apps in the App Store right now. So if your app is unique in what it does, you're going to float to the top for search results and all the rest of it. So I definitely kind of recommend. Microsoft also pushing kind of and promoting apps in the App Store as well, so you can reach more users that way. There's an app certification program or publisher certification process to go through, and an app certification process. The point of that is really just to give users confidence, and that makes them more likely to download your products as well. So that's also worth going through. And what you come out with is a really nice kind of offering to users around kind of finding high quality apps that they can trust in the App Store that's right kind of where they are in Microsoft Teams. So it's all good. It's worth putting the effort in, I think, to kind of get your app into the App Store. So that is that blog post, kind of talking about the process of getting things into the App Store. And that's the end of that kind of 3-part blog series talking about building apps. So that's good. The only other thing I think I wanted to cover quickly, it was not quite big enough of a thing for me to put a blog post about, really. There's a breaking change to the Microsoft Graph, but only the beta one, not the 1.0 one. Just as a reminder, the kind of difference between the V1 and the beta, the V1 namespace for Microsoft Graph, there shouldn't be breaking changes that happen there. And I think they have to give a 2-year warning of any breaking changes, right? So if they're going to deprecate something, they need to give you a lot of notice. Whereas the beta endpoint is much more fluid. Like, they will still give you notice, but they kind of don't have to give you any notice. And that's why they don't recommend that the beta endpoint is used for production workloads. I think because kind of the inference is that a breaking change could just happen and your apps will just stop working, and therefore they don't want you building production apps on the beta endpoints, because those things might happen and then you'd be sad. Whereas at least with the V1 endpoints, they have to give you significant notice, like 2 years notice. So yeah. Anyway, this is a breaking change to the beta endpoint, and it's to do with the Assignments API. Now, I'm not very familiar with the Assignments API, because the Assignments API is all to do with education and edutainments and assignments and having them marked and all that sort of stuff. It's a whole side to Teams that I actually don't know very much about, because I'm not an education expert, and I've never really used these education-based APIs, such as the Assignments API. I'm kind of aware they exist, but I don't have working knowledge of them. Now, the Assignments API allows you to go and get and set things about assignments, right? So there's a couple of changes, right? So first of all, there's some properties that have been removed. So if you're using the Assignments API, then you probably want to go check out this blog post. because it talks through and mentions, look, these properties, and this is an image, annoyingly, otherwise, so it's not going to show up in search results, which is kind of a bit annoying, I suppose. But yeah, so these two release by and release date time properties, they're going to be removed. Apparently, the whole point of submissions and releasing submissions is obsolete. So I guess if you are using this, it probably doesn't make much sense anymore. So whatever reason there were for having this has gone away. Yep, you've got until May 17th to make these changes. So you've still got like a month basically to kind of make these changes. And that's what I mean by the difference between the beta and the V1, right? Most of the time, if it's a breaking change in beta, they will give you some notice. It won't just be whoops. I mean, sometimes that happens, but like most of the time, they'll try and give you like this, like a month's notice. So it's aimed at developers who are still very much actively developing their product. A month is easily enough time to rev and make those changes. Let's have a look. There's an entire method here being removed. This get resources folder URL function is going to be removed. But actually it's kind of being moved. It's now become a property of the education assignment entity. Yep. And then there's some resource types that are being removed as well. You can't actually create them, so it doesn't really make sense for them to be here. So it's unlikely, I think, that anybody's going to be using these, although you might have a schema based up around them that's expecting them or something like that. But cool. Other changes, there's an improved performance, I guess. So some things, okay, well this is kind of an improved get request performance. However, what they're saying is these things are no longer going to be there by default, and if you need them, you need to include an explicit expand. That is likely to catch developers, I'd feel, because if you're making these calls to go and get stuff and you're getting back this education assignment entity, you might expect these things to be here because they've always been here. What this blog post is saying is these things won't be here like implicitly anymore. So like you'll have to do work to get them. They won't just show up in the get. You're going to have to do something like this to expand them out and get what you need. So, yep. Other changes. This is another one. Pagination is changing from 500 to 50. This might affect you if you've sort of so far ignored the fact that pagination might be a thing and you're getting in between 50 and 500 results and you're kind of not really worried about it because at the moment, you know, as long as you always know you're going to get less than 500 results, you can ignore it. However, that's not going to be the case anymore. If you get more than 50, you're going to hit pagination, and so you're going to need to implement pagination doing this by following. There'll be a next link in the response. That's kind of fairly common pattern. It's a bit of a gotcha for developers. It tends to get ignored in development and only found in testing or even production, especially like this where, you know, it was a very high value and now it's a much lower value. So yeah, that's definitely one to be aware of. And what is this change? Assignment and submission resource folders are not created automatically. Okay, so they've got some telemetry that says most of the time assignments don't have resources attached to them, so they're not going to create folders each time. Okay, I guess that makes sense. However, there's no end time on this. Not sure. Anyway, there's going to be an API call that you can use to go and set them up if you want, but there's no details on that right now. Okay. This, I'm not sure there's anything you can do about this, but this might cause you a problem if you're expecting those folders to be there. Okay, that's it for my week. It's been a busy week with work. It's been a busy week with home. It's been nice weather though, so that's been good. And looking forward to the weekend. Yeah, I think that's everything from me. Reminder that next Tuesday, I think, you might have to check my blog for the details. I think it's next Tuesday. I'm going to be talking about Power Apps and Power Platform. I've got all the kind of details together now. I spent some time working on it this morning. It's only a 40-minute webinar, so it's kind of a short one, and I've got lots of stuff I want to say, but I'm going to split it into two. The first 20 minutes, I'm just going to try and introduce and level set on everything that the Power Platform is, and 20 minutes isn't really long enough to do that, so I'm going to have to kind of keep it crisp. And then the final 20 minutes, I want to show like a live demo and actually build something from scratch. So So it's going to be a busy 40 minutes. So 20 minutes me talking, 20 minutes me doing. In 40 minutes, you'll get a good grounding as to exactly what the Power Platform is, and you can watch me build something in it as well. So if that sounds like interesting, it's a free webinar. I think it's next Tuesday. I should probably know. But you can go and shout if you ping me up on Twitter if you can't find any details, but look through my blog or the speaking page and you'll find it there as well. Free to register. So hope to see you there. In the meantime, have a great weekend, whatever it is you're doing, and I will speak to you again next time.